This is Geek Gab with your host, Darnell and me, Daddy Warpig. We are back. Geek Gab for Saturday, May 30th, 2020. Man, I guess it's taking time to kick in. I really did eat something, but I guess it's just taking a little bit of time to kick in because my brain just hit the end of that where I was supposed to say something else and it went, I can take it or leave.
It blew all your energy on that high energy intro, which I appreciate. I know that some people react well to it, some people react poorly to it, but every time you start that high energy intro, I'm pumped. I'm just, yeah. My hand reflexively pumps when you say we are back. I'm
excited though, because we missed last week.
Yeah, I built up a little bit of energy. You were sick, but as everybody can tell, you're back, and so we're glad to have you back. It wasn't
so very sick.
It wasn't death by COVID.
No, it wasn't COVID.
Yeah,
grateful for that.
So welcome back, DW. How was your the non-sick portion of your last couple of weeks?
Very, very good, actually, really good. I'm excited. I'm very excited. I've moved on from illustrations to photographs. Which has moved. Everybody who listens to the show regularly knows a few weeks ago I talked about how illustrations help get my creative juices flowing for some parts of my secret project. Well, illustrations, it's real easy to find like cyberpunk or other things, science fiction, and that helped me focus on those aspects of the secret project. But moving from paintings and drawings and things like that to actual photographs, there's pictures of models and photo manipulations in Photoshop and things like that, helped me focus on an entirely different set of areas because there is a whole big, almost genre now among Eastern European photographers that's them making just unbelievably gorgeous photographs of illustrating traditional fairy tales. Just fabulously beautiful. And so I've been looking at those for the past few weeks, and they've been really helping me to work on fairy tale things, which is just awesome. Absolutely amazing. And I only am going to say this part because it's going to tie into some stuff we're going to discuss later. And I don't know how to say this because I don't want this to sound creepy because it's not creepy. It's genuinely the truth. You got to understand with photographers, they will post so many gorgeous photos, but interspersed with all these gorgeous photos of fairies and knights and elves and archers and all this other stuff are a certain number of nude shots.
Sure.
That's just what photographers do. And I've been looking at so many. I'm numb to it now. I have seen.
You're jaded.
I'm jaded. I just.
I think we talked about this before. Yeah, I mean, and you can't blame them if you're a young male photographer, and your hobby or your profession is a secret key that unlocks, dumb pretty models to disrobe in front of you. You know what? You're going to take advantage of that. You're going to take advantage of that every day you can. Besides, some of them are beautiful too. It's just me being cynical.
I have seen so many boobies in the last couple of weeks that I'm just numb to it. It's just not even.
Okay, so
it's just not even aesthetically appealing anymore. You're just like, you're moving through the photographs and you go, yep, there's some boobies. And you move.
Sorry to hear that.
I don't think this is going to be a permanent thing, mind you, but right now I've got a job to do and I don't have time necessarily to waste on every photo. But I do say this. Some of these photographs are just absolutely mind-blowingly gorgeous. If, by the way, audience, if you're into, and I've posted some of them, if you're into beautiful, beautiful pictures, some of the art photographers, and I can type these up into the chat so you can see the names, and they do again. Traditional sort of Russian or Scandinavian folklore. Some of the vampire pictures they put up are absolutely chilling, but just really beautiful. There is a specific Scandinavian creature that is a beautiful woman with animal horns on her head, and I can't remember the name of it, and I wish I could. I haven't been able to search for it and find it again. It begins with an H, but the pictures they've made of beauties with that kind of setup are just gorgeous, or witches. And of course, I've saved all the photos that have been inspiring, but they are absolutely gorgeous. So the only name I can remember off the top of my head right now is Lillian Liu, and she's got a website where she's got a bunch of pictures. So I put that name in the chat. You can search that up. And I believe Anita Ante is another one. And there's a couple more that just are absolutely fabulous with it. And I guess we can put them in the notes under the show. And maybe I'll think of a couple of more that I'm really looking.
Yeah, we'll add them in. We'll do whatever you find. We'll get the links in later.
But yeah, I am so grateful for finding some of these, and not even because it, helps me on my project. They're just absolutely, utterly gorgeous. And some of them are doing monsters, right? They're doing hideous, really disgusting things, but they're so compelling and so interesting. And of course, I need inspiration for monsters too. And you look at them and you're going, man, that would make an awesome, awesome monster. And one of those guys is named Stefan Giselle. And I'm putting his name in the chat too. So, but yeah, I've been working my tail off. And then the last couple of days, I've just been doing, I guess you might call it daydreaming, but it's not really daydreaming. It's just deep, deep, deep imagination work. Taking a situation and imagining, just visualizing in my head what would happen visually and adding in sort of the cold consequences. Okay, so here's the city of Philadelphia. What if the entire population were put into this really strange situation? What would they need? Who would they take charge of? They're cut off from the federal government, they're cut off from the state government, but they have, in Philadelphia itself, they have an FBI office, they have federal judges, they have, the governor might be there or whatever, but the mayor's, it's really his city and he's in charge. How's he going to finesse it? Who's going to try to take control? How's he going to tell the FBI they're not in command? And then what are they going to do about food, about water, about survival? And then you go on and all these seemingly dry details. And then all of a sudden I come around a corner after a couple of hours of this and realize, oh, okay, what they would need to do is send out an expedition. Okay, what are the details of the expedition? And all of a sudden it's bam, story idea. The rest of that isn't an interesting story, but it's great background for this story to talk about how desperate the circumstances is, but the expedition itself, what happens on it, how they organize it, what equipment they have available, how they have to adapt to these difficult situations. Now that is a story. And so I'm just stacking all these things up and filling it out, and all of a sudden, bam, now there's an opportunity for an interesting story. So just imagining where Philadelphia is, what situation it is, and what everything looks like, what the terrain and what the clouds and everything else looks like, and how it all works, and things like that. A bunch of dry, boring stuff that the audience doesn't need to know, but which all contribute to why they're in such desperate straits and why they need this expedition and why it's so key. So that was several hours off and on of work that was purely mental imaginary work. And so, yeah, the last few weeks have been awesome. I'm so excited. I've made tons of notes. I've got things getting organized, and yeah, that's my last few weeks.
That's outstanding. I'm glad to hear it's so productive.
I am excited beyond anything I've felt before. Yeah.
Well, I mean that's it. We're done then. You have to end on a high note, man. No, seriously, that's great. I'm happy to hear it, and as always, I'm really looking forward to the stuff that you. So what I can say this, but I get a sneak preview occasionally of the stuff he's talking about, and every time he talks about it, I'm like, you gotta let some out because it's some really cool, really interesting stuff. Not interesting to everybody, like he said. Sometimes it's mundane, nitty gritty stuff, but it's really cool to hear what's going on. So appreciate it.
How was your week, by the way?
Oh yeah, my week was pretty good. Well, the main thing that I'm dealing with right now is I've been playing D&D online with some friends, and normally that's not noteworthy. I've been avoiding the online games until we've been forced into social distancing, and we're almost hitting our stride as a new group with a DM who's putting in a lot of work, and it's good stuff. We finally had achievement unlocked, as they say. We finally had our session that was completely dedicated to planning the next adventure. That was it. We spent like 2.5 hours on Roll20 just going over clues and handouts and talking about our options and what we wanted to accomplish as a group.
Cool.
Which is weird, but yeah. It sounds like a horrible waste of time, but everybody had a good time. I did want to switch gears real quick, say hello to everybody hanging out with us live. Now that we're settled in, Simon Hogwood, Emmett Fitzhume, Jackson Anderson, Bradford Walker, Mega Buster Shepard is back. So it's awesome to have you guys listening live. I did want to single out Bradford Walker. Bradford Walker's doing okay. There's some troubles in his city. He's out there in Minneapolis. But I'm glad to see that you're okay and ready to hang out. And that's the last we'll talk about that, so that you can focus on all fun.
Yeah, I've been discussing those kinds of things on Twitter. I guess the one thing I will say is that Sophia Narwitz, I think that's how you pronounce it, who is a video games, an independent video games journalist, lives in one of those cities that's currently experiencing riots, and she went out for 2-3 days in a row and has spent 10-12 hours a day documenting the riots, just doing independent journalism, and has live tweeted it out on Twitter. And that's just damn impressive, and you can go check that out on the account. So I would certainly, I retweeted the thread last night, but I just wanted to mention I find that incredibly impressive to have gone and done that, and obviously it's dangerous to do that, but for someone who's a journalist to go and do that is impressive to me.
Yeah.
Civilians, I would not recommend that, but if you're a journalist, go and do some journalism like the mainstream journalists aren't necessarily doing.
Yeah, journalists haven't been doing journalism for a long time, so this is a golden opportunity for someone to actually show some chops.
So yeah, but that's all I wanted to talk about, is just give you a heads up if you follow Sophia, or if you if you know people who do, go check it out. It's interesting.
Fair enough. Well, in happier news, or at least more exciting news, today we're supposedly getting a new rocket launch from SpaceX and NASA. Holy cow.
That was supposed to happen 3 hours ago.
Was it? They're live. The weather doesn't look great, but they're live, and the launch is an hour, so they should be, if everything goes well, they should be lifting off right at the end of the show.
What? I thought it was 9 a.m. Eastern time.
I don't know. It probably was pushed back, but the way this timing goes, it'll be 3:30 Eastern time. Yeah, 3:22 p.m. Eastern time is what they're saying.
I was live tweeting the last launch, the last attempt at a launch on the 28th. That was disappointing.
Yeah, they had to scrub it because of the weather, huh?
Yeah.
So this is the first manned mission to space in I don't know how long, and it's strange that the whole interaction between NASA and SpaceX, that they've sort of offloaded that work to essentially a private company, which is kind of strange, but appropriate for 2020, isn't it?
Yeah, it's. I'm laughing because in between the scrubbed mission and today's launch, they had another SpaceX rocket that they were sending up, an unmanned test of the flight SN4 that just had a static fire on the launch pad and just blew the hell up.
Oh boy!
Yesterday.
It's incredible, isn't it? The fine line between having a rocket automatically land itself on a landing pad versus everything disintegrating in fire.
Yeah.
Dangerous stuff.
I think somebody was tweeting, said, okay, nobody tell the astronauts. I was just like, dag. I mean, space travel is inherently dangerous, and I don't see being able to make that safer without some radical advances in materials technology, because you have to go to space on top of things that go boom. And most of the things that go boom real well that you can control are also highly, caustic or otherwise really difficult to handle in large quantities, and they want to go boom. And if you give them a chance to go boom in any way other than the controlled, precise way that you need them to, they're going to do it. And the fact that we've been able to go to space so many times with Apollo and with the space shuttle and Mercury and all the others is just incredible. It is a testament to engineering, design, and manufacturing. It's a testament to human ingenuity, and I just see that, and it's like, hey, it's amazing.
It is outstanding.
Oh yeah, and then yesterday someone posted we had to scrub the 28th because of weather, and then someone yesterday posted a Soyuz rocket going off that the Russians are sending up directly into a thunderstorm, and they cut it and recut it from several different angles, so I couldn't tell, but it got hit by at least one massive lightning bolt going up, and did not blow up.
Wow. Because when you say Russian rocket, I did not blow up is a twist ending.
Yeah. Russia is the Florida of Europe.
Wow. I guess so.
These guys, you just see these guys, these engineers stacking their beer cans by the console. One of them's filled with, an inch of beer and a bunch of cigarette butts. They just turn to the other and say, "You storm. We lunch."
It'll be okay.
It'll be okay. Boom, there it goes. Lightning strike. See? He's okay.
It's best weather.
So, yeah. Just been it's been a fun 2 days, the last couple of days on Twitter.
Yep, for sure.
So are we ready to talk about another contributing factor to my current shell shock with regards to female anatomy?
That's a great setup. I can't wait to find out what follows.
So there's a band out there, and I guess I have to use the term band loosely because it's really just one guy, one French guy, who it's called Carpenter Brute, and they do retro wave or synth wave music, and they're really quite good. And when when your programmer friend came on who worked on like Halo and Oni and things like that, worked for Bungie. And
Yeah,
he wanted us to talk about things that we loved, and I talked about synthwave. It's that genre, same genre, but it's a band I hadn't discovered yet. This is from the chat. Do not worry, much better than capitalist design. Trust me, I'm an engineer.
we know space better than your precious American capitalist design.
It took us 9 years to get back in space.
Dang.
9! We had to have a private company do it. What the hell are we paying NASA? Elon Musk got us back into space.
I know.
9 years. 9 years.
Well, I hate to go there, but have you noticed who's been in control of the federal government for the past 9 to, 15 years?
I'm glad we're back into space. I am.
It's awesome.
Speaking of back into space.
Back into space.
Blood Machines, which began life as a music video for Carpenter Brute, is all about starships. Kind of, sort of. So, I'm trying to...
You broke my mind there. I missed the connection.
It is a Shudder original series. There was a music video for the band called Turbo Killer that came out several years ago. I think 5 years ago. It had a really, really freaky, cool aesthetic to it. And that's pretty much all it was aesthetic. It's a music video, and so the story didn't really make sense. But it looked cool. Looked cool as hell, and the song was really, really good. It's available on YouTube. We'll stick a link into the description so you can watch it after the show. But the end of the video was a bunch of cars racing up the side of a spaceship that was taking off. The lead car was escaping from them, and all the other cars were starting to fall one by one, and so forth. And then a couple other things happened, and the music video ended. Turbo Killer. And so everybody loved the video, and so they decided they wanted to make a movie kind of based on the video. So they jumped to Kickstarter and got funding, and shot the movie, and then did another Kickstarter to make it even better. They got a deal with Shudder. Shudder paid them some money to show it on their streaming channel. We've discussed Shudder before. I've seen a couple of great shows on Shudder. And then I was waiting, and finally the release date for this movie came out like 10 days ago. So I watched it. And it is aesthetically fascinating. It's a gorgeous, or alternately horrific looking movie. And I mean horrific in the sense of arousing horror. And so it's great. Just like the photos we were talking about again at the beginning of the show, where, the beautiful stuff is beautiful and the hideous stuff is hideous. Although they did not go nearly as far as some of the photos I've been looking at. But it is aesthetically interesting, and they did a lot of great stuff with it. It's not a feature film length. Shudder broke it up into 3 episodes, and once you cut out the credits at the end of each episode, it turns out to be about 45 minutes long of actual show. So it's not a long viewing. You could take it in and very quickly.
It's more like an episode of television.
Yeah, it's like one episode of television. The story, such as it is really, really wonky. The background to the, I don't know if I should call it a movie or series. It feels really weird calling it a series. Is really unexplained, and it makes everything kind of weird. And it really is like a slower TV episode where the focus of it is on the music, which is by Carpenter Brute, the band that they made the original video for. They have an entire album of the music for this show, and it's fun. It's a great album. So if you have a chance to check it out, if you got a subscription to a streaming music service, or if you want to, pick it up, it is more Carpenter Brute. It's more retro wave, more synth wave, and it's great. I enjoyed it. I have a subscription to Apple Music, so I have the luxury of most of the time being able to just, if I hear an artist's name or an album I want to check out, I can just go and download it immediately and be listening just a few minutes later. So I'll be honest, and this is what it feels like to me. Back in the good old days of MTV during the 80s, artists would sometimes release like super extended music videos with a plot and acting and things like that they would be like 15 minutes or half an hour or even longer. This feels like a 45-minute music video.
That's great. I've heard music videos described as the last or the latest true American art form.
It's not bad. It's actually really good in the sense that you go in expecting a music video. If you go in expecting a movie or a TV show, you'll probably be disappointed because you'll be like, what the heck is going on? But if you go in saying, oh, okay, this is a 45-minute Carpenter Brute music video, and that's your mentality, then you'll be like, oh, this is an awesome music video, then yeah, you'll probably really enjoy it.
I appreciate the warning. I imagine the casual Shudder browser is looking for their next dopamine hit of red colored corn syrup is going to click on this and go, what the heck is this?
It is bizarre as heck, though. So what I'm about to say isn't spoilers because it's literally the opening scene of a movie, and I have a strong opinion that if you talk about what's in the very first scene of a movie, that's not really spoilers. You can't consider that spoilers. That's just the opening scene. So one spaceship that's part of like the galactic ruling, the police or the military, shoots down another. It goes down on a planet. It lands to capture people or salvage or something. And the people they shot down are really all angry and upset because they've endangered the spirit of the ship, although they're not really clear on saying that. You only learn that later in the show. And as they're arguing with these barbarians, these rebels, a naked chick covered with glitter with an upside down glowing cross on her forehead, and you can see this because that was the thumbnail to the show, comes floating up out of the spaceship into the sky, into space, and starts traveling at superluminal, that is, faster than light speeds. And so they capture one of the barbarians, the one in charge, and take off after this, floating naked chick. And that's what kicks off the rest of the show. My main difficulty with the plot, and again, if you think of it as a music video, you're not going to be expecting a super coherent plot because you're there for the music, you're there to enjoy the visuals. I went in expecting kind of a movie. And so I was constantly befuddled by what was going on because I couldn't force it to make sense. I was trying so hard to force all the events on screen to make sense. I was inventing circumstances where it would make sense. And all I can say is I really, really think that this music video would only make sense in Brian Niemeyer's Pirates Go to Hell universe. Space Pirates Go to Hell universe. I don't know if that's a challenge for Brian or,
That's right. We'll sign him up for the 30-day free trial of Shudder and give him a link. Be like, hey, watch this. How can you make this canon in your Soul Dancer universe?
So, and after that, things happen. And it ends up there's a whole bunch of these spirits of starships during the climactic battle. And by that point, you're just kind of shell-shocked with nudity. You're just like, ah! But yeah, the visuals of the starship, the visuals of the control room, what's going on, the visuals of space and the area they get to, and all of this they're fun, they're visually interesting, the music is great. And so if you like Carpenter Brute or you like music videos, it's well worth a watch as long as you know what you're getting.
But if you don't, you're going to be so confused.
So confused. Just don't try to rationalize it. Or do. Maybe you'll have a better job. Maybe you'll do a better job or have a better have better results than I did. I was like, man, whoever made this is just crackerjack at making music videos. They are absolutely ace, but they do not know how to script long form visual trauma. And really, the reason why we're using this picture as the thumbnail is because every other picture of the thumbnail has a topless woman in it.
Oh, okay.
This,
Because you're on Shudder, and when you're on Shudder, this is not a place for families.
yeah, it's horror movies, man. I mean, they've got tons of '90s horror movie, or excuse me, '80s horror movies on there. You know, I think they've got right now Murder Party at the Slime Bowl Bolorama, or whatever that is. Just prime '80s cheese horror movies. So, and I'm not saying that to be, I'm not saying that in a derogatory way. I mean, those are classic horror movies, but you know, those horror movies tended to have. They got Maniac, Slumber Party Massacre, Slumber Party Massacre 2. They've got a lot of Amadou Diallo movies from the 70s, those really hardcore Italian horror movies, All the Colors of the Dark. You got Prom Night, The Hills Have Eyes. Oh, yeah, Sorority Babes in the Slime Ball Bolorama.
Wow.
Chopping Mall. Just, classic 80s slasher movies. And you got to look at them going, yeah, that's awesome. So, having a movie title card with some nudity on it is just not all that shocking because of everything else that's on the site. If you're on Shudder, you're there for horror, and there's a lot of nudity in it, typically. Collectively, if not in any one given movie. And I don't want to say this. It's not an exploitation film. It's not a Troma movie, which is what I'm going to talk about for the last few minutes of the show. It's not a softcore movie. It's not a Playboy movie. I don't want to push this in that direction. It's just capping off a couple of weeks of perusing fashion editorials. And I admit, I've never read fashion magazines before. I've never read Vogue or Cosmo or any of these other fashion magazines, but having been introduced to the world of fashion and having seen fashion editorials, and an editorial means something different in the fashion world than it means in like newspapers, which is what I'm used to. An editorial is a pictorial talking about introducing clotheslines and stuff, lines of clothing from specific, either with a specific theme or from a specific designer or whatever. Those are very, very revealing, and I had no idea that's what fashion was all about. These fashion magazines have a lot of revealing photography in them. But yeah, it just and it's not even presented like lustfully. It's not there to be nudity. It's one chick and she's in heavy makeup, so she doesn't even look human. But still, it's just every time that character is on screen, you're like, yep. There she is. I don't know. And the upside down cross thing, I don't understand why that's there, other than the fact that that was in a music video, in the original music video, the Turbo Killer one, because it doesn't really bear on any of the events that happen. It doesn't seem to.
It's just cool.
It is. It's just cool. It looks really cool, this glowing cross on the middle of her forehead, but it doesn't really affect anything. It doesn't really have anything to do with anything.
It doesn't have any meaning.
Yeah.
That's funny.
That's one of those things, like, if you're writing a movie, it better darn well mean something. It better darn well affect events. It better darn well have something to do with something by the end of the show, or at least be explained in a one-line throwaway. But if it's a music video, who cares?
Style over substance, baby.
Yeah, it's just a music video. So
that reminds me of a couple of music videos in the past that sort of have done that sort of thing. Do you recall? I think one of the most expensive music videos ever made was "The Perfect Drug" by 9 Inch Nails. Do you remember that one?
I've never seen that music video.
It's a great music video, but it's all style, no substance. It's got like a gothic horror Edgar Allan Poe vibe to it, it's worth a watch. Trent Reznor decides to try drum and bass for a song. And speaking of music, hour-long music videos that actually tell a story, have you seen the Daft Punk music video, Interstellar 5555?
No.
All right, put that on your list. Well, you don't like Daft Punk, but whatever, put it on your list.
No, I love Daft Punk.
You just hate Around the World. Got it.
No, I like Around the World.
Oh,
I think
good.
You're confusing me with somebody else.
I must be. Oh, I could have sworn it was you. My apologies.
I did like the remixed Tron album better than the original Tron album. That could be it.
Well, then you absolutely have to see the Interstellar 5555. It's their second album, Discovery, done to an anime. And the anime actually tells a story. Is the story dumb? Yes. Does it make any sense? No. But it is a story, and it's done in which animation studio is that? I don't know the names off the top of my head. I'm counting on Bradford Walker to know this one. They did the same style of animation as the Captain Harlock series and a couple of other things. Some of you, there's got to be an anime guy in the audience who knows what that is. But I think once you see the first couple of frames, you'd be like, "Oh, I recognize this art style." Really cool, really cool. There, that was it. That was my contribution.
I mean, having watched Troma movies, I know what exploitation is now, and it's not an exploitation music video, but
it sounds excessive. It sounds really excessive. There we go. Leiji Matsumoto, thank you, sir. I knew he would come through.
But yeah, it's a fun show. It's got some horrific elements in it. Just go in knowing, hey, this is all about the music, and I'm cool.
That is. Let me tell you what. When you talked about it, and I saw the thumbnail that we used, I had no idea that was coming. absolutely no idea. I'm blown away by what I've heard today.
Because it looks like from the thumbnail, it's like blood machines, and it's got an upside down cross that's glowing and stuff. It looks like it's some kind of satanic something or other.
Yeah, or like we made a new vampire horror series on. Yeah. I was not expecting a synthwave music video. That's amazing.
So a couple weeks ago, we talked about the Troma movies I watched.
Yeah.
Because I watched a couple of them that were made by Troma, and one of them that was now being distributed by Troma. So the next week, I went back and I watched the other three Toxic Avenger movies. So that's 3 of them. I watched the other 2 Class of Nuke'em High videos. So that's a total of 5. And I watched Troma's War. And I watched part of Tromeo and Juliet.
Oh, the names are perfect.
So that's 6.5 more. Not even a half, or maybe it was a half. Didn't keep track. 6.5 more Troma movies I watched in that next week. And my verdict on that is I think I'm Troma'd out. I think that's it. I don't think I can do it anymore.
Is it just the same shtick over and over again?
No, I think Tromeo and Juliet broke me. Let's start with Troma's War. Or actually, the Class of Nuke'em High 2 and 3 aren't even really set in the same universe as the Class of Nuke'em High. They're not really set in the same continuity. They don't make sense as direct sequels, but they were fun. They were fun sequels, and whatever. They're all right. They're just bizarre as hell exploitation movies, but if you like the Troma movies, you'll like those 2. So I assume they're Troma classics. They're not bad.
Hey, I guess there's a reason they've been going for so long.
Yeah. Troma's War was surprising. If it were made by a company with more money to hire, to have higher production values on everything, and you cut out the Troma attempts at humor, it would actually be a really good movie. It's kind of affecting in a lot of places. Troma's War is about a bunch of citizens from Tromaville who are on a flight that passes over the Caribbean, and their plane suffers a mechanical failure and crashes, and they crash land on a Cuban island. And it turns out this Cuban island is gathering an infiltration force to go to infiltrate America to wreak havoc and do some bad things. And they happen to have gotten there a couple of days before they launch, and in order to save their own lives and get off the island, they have to become guerrilla fighters and kill bad guys. It is better than every other Troma film I've ever seen.
Sounds like Red Dawn.
It's got an actual decent script. It's got characterization. It's got characters that you feel some genuine affection for. I was shocked when I found myself caring about the characters. Because I'd seen all these other Troma films, and I'm like, wait a minute, what? What's going on? I care whether or not this character dies? What am I? Insane?
It was an experience. so unlike all the other experiences you had. You're not alone, man. Emmett Fitzhume says that he loves cheese, but he never understood Troma. Says I've just never gotten the Troma thing. Me too, for that matter.
Then, so I would say it's not quite as good as Zombie Island Massacre, but it's still got a solid idea and a better script than you would expect from a Troma film. And yeah, it's one of the best efforts I've seen out of that studio.
Wow.
It's just kind of amazing is actually what it was when you're used to Troma movies. And it could be remade and made into a really good film. Not nowadays, but, you know. Oh, one of the funnier things about the movie is one of the characters is this diehard feminist. And she is always complaining and always getting offended by all these things. But in the end, she, has to pick up a gun and fight for her life, and falls in love with the big, beefy guy. And, they have character arcs that make sense and are kind of cool. And they're not mocking her totally, but she doesn't come off well during most of the movie, which, big studios wouldn't do nowadays, but it was interesting to see. Citizen Toxie had the sequels. None of them were as good as the original. None of them aroused that same affection that I had for the original movie. They're okay. I've seen worse movies, but they're not really, even for Troma movies, they're not great movies. And then there's Tromeo and Juliet, which I couldn't finish watching. I just couldn't. It just got to be too much for me. It was trashier than every other Troma movie. It was just not good. Not good at all. I felt dirty for watching it.
That's a shame.
I mean, it went beyond fun exploitation into just revolting. It was just too much. It's like if there was another studio that was like Troma, but even more so, that was specifically based on shock, that didn't have the playful humor of Troma, they would have made Tromeo and Juliet. It's based on Shakespeare, and a lot of time they're talking in, iambic pentameter or quoting various Shakespeare plays, including Romeo and Juliet. And Lemmy from Motorhead is the narrator. So it had all the hallmarks that could have made it a great movie, but they just went too far, and I don't know. Maybe it's the latest movie that is chronologically the latest movie of all the ones I watched. And so maybe their audience had moved on to where they need to keep turning up the shock value to make it funny. But they went right out of my comfort zone with that, and I was just like, I'm not. No, I'm done.
That's too bad. Yeah, I was just discovering him. It fits Hume Clutis and James Gunn. He's responsible for Tromeo and Juliet, by the way. And apparently, when you give him a big budget and a smart IP, you end up with Guardians of the Galaxy. How about that?
And also muzzle him and tie him down to, say, okay, here's the corral, man. You can't go outside it.
Yep.
Yeah, James Gunn was an extra in the fourth Toxic Avenger. He played a scientist that got hit by a car and run over. And that was his entire appearance in the movie. He's there for, I don't know, a second or two, and then he gets hit by a car. And he says a couple of words before he dies in a pool of his own blood. So, I don't know, all the people that dislike James Gunn might actually find the fourth Toxic Avenger, Citizen Toxie. They might find that cathartic. But the fact that he wrote Tromeo and Juliet, yeah, that's not totally surprising.
He's not going to open with that. He's not going to be like, hey, why should we hire you to write this next movie? He's not going to open with, well, have you seen Tromeo and Juliet?
Yeah. So all in all, a mixed bag. Kind of disappointing. I guess the three movies I saw the two actual Tromeo movies I saw were like the classics. And they were some of the best Tromeo ever made. And since then, they've struggled to make movies as good as that again. Just based on my having now watched 9-part Troma movies.
That it was a lightning in the bottle sort of thing where everything in the Toxic Avenger worked.
Yeah.
And they haven't been able to reproduce that same kind of success.
Yeah, number 4 was almost as good as the original Toxic Avenger. But it had some really, really bad gross out humor in it. Which I'm not a fan of. Troma's War, I would say, was about as good as the original. If you wanted to watch the best of Troma from what I've watched, you would watch Toxic Avenger, you would watch Troma's War, and you would watch Class of Nuke'em High. And those are the 3 best Troma movies out of the 9 I've seen.
Cool.
9 and a bit I've seen. So, and I'm actually glad I watched those 3 movies because they were entertaining. Even though they had a low budget, they were entertaining. They were made with craft. These are people who, they weren't incompetent. They know how to make a movie. You don't have microphones dangling in the shot. You don't have, all of these terrible things that can go wrong on a movie. You don't have bad audio mismatches, things like that. They're just made on a shoestring budget. So, yeah, I mean, those 3 movies, if you want to get the best of Troma, those are the 3 to watch.
Well, you've saved me a lot of hours of pain and frustration. Thank you for your service, Daddy Warpig.
Yes, I have gone through Troma so that you can pick the best of Troma, and If you're interested and if you're hungry for more, you can watch the other ones that I watched. Woo, doggy. Troma's War is a movie I actually would watch again. Let me put it that way. That's my rating on Troma's War. At some point in the future, I could see myself watching it again voluntarily.
That's really strong, actually. Well, maybe I'll watch it for the first time sometime.
I think you'd hate it, but go for it.
Thanks.
That's just my estimation.
Okay, so not a bad movie, but also not the type of movie I would enjoy.
I think so, yes. I mean, if you wanted to watch it, in a couple of months and talk about it on the air, sure, I'd love to hear what you thought about it. But that would be great because, I've gone back and watched movies that you've reviewed and mentioned my opinion of them. So I'd love to hear what you thought about it in a couple of months, or a couple of weeks. But man, I really would. I'd love to hear what you thought about it.
All right, well, we'll see if it rises above irredeemable trash.
Now, that's the show.
That's it.
That's all the content. But we have news for next week.
News. I'm out of town next week.
So no show.
No show.
Yeah, no show next week.
I was gonna say if you wake up on Saturday really bored and you want to do a solo show, do it. But no show next week. What about the week after?
I don't have anything the week after, I don't think.
Well, we should do a show then.
Sure, why not?
All right. That is our promise to you, gentle listeners.
It could be fun.
We'll be back on the 13th. Assuming the world hasn't ended. Which, that'd be nice. I was getting kind of bored of the place anyway.
Yeah, it's so 2020 now, man. Like, a normal year would just have a normal riot in a city. 2020 has to hold riots, and I think I counted 9 cities last night.
Oh, yeah.
That's 2020 for you. That is so 2020, and we're not even out of May yet.
You're gonna wish we were back in the days of quarantine.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know, man. By September, I'm going to be going, do you remember those peaceful days in April when all you had to worry about was whether or not wearing masks was a violation of our constitutional rights? This is by the time that the mutant cannibal rats have decided to start, I don't know, eating the concrete pillars holding up all the buildings in New York City. So,
yeah, well, it was a lot of fun getting our minds off that stuff for a while. And it was great hanging out, chatting with people about all the horror movies and all the stuff we talked about today. I really appreciate everybody listening live. It's fun to interact with you guys, as well as my inimitable co-host, Daddy Warpig. Thanks for a good show.
I just waved. Like you said, inimitable co-host, and I did a hand wave like I was waving at a camera.
One day we're going to have a video show. One day we're going to have a video show, and that'll make sense.
See, it's kicking in now. You guys don't know this. I woke up very close to start time for the show. And I decided, hey, I don't need food because it's just an hour. I can get through it. And then I realized as we got within minutes of starting the show, I actually did need food because my brain was shut down. So I had to run off, eat some protein, eat some sugar, and come back and get ready. And now my brain is starting to fizzle because all that quick energy is out. It's gone. It's heading for the hills, and now my brain is starting to shut down. And that's where that wave came from. Is my brain going, well, I did a show. I'm done. It's out of here. I want to thank everybody coming on the show. I appreciate everybody who's participating live, who had such interesting comments and interesting questions and interesting things for my bad Russian accent to say. We want to thank everyone for who listens live and who are listening later. We are available at youtube.com/Geek Gab. Pardon me while I take a sip. We are also available on the Google Play Store, on the SoundCloud.com, and on the iTunes Store. You can subscribe to us on the device of your choice. Subscribe to the podcast, download us, and listen to us in whatever way you feel is most comfortable. Go ahead and check out Blood Machine's music video on Shudder. Avoid most of the Troma movies, but check out the best of Troma, which is Toxic Avenger, Class of Nuke'em High 1, and of course, Troma's War. And we'll see you in 2 weeks, because we're leaving you for now. But don't worry, don't you fret. We will be back.